Hey everyone, it's Coach Patrick here. Welcome to another set of Coach Hours. And this time around, we're doing a special mid-season webinar on maintaining the pain cave. And this is something that's come to me over the past couple weeks as I work with people around adjusting their schedule to accommodate a variety of challenges. As age group triathletes, you're faced with multiple constraints on your time, whether it comes from work or family or hobbies, it could be health related, whatever it may be. You have to be very mindful of how you manage your time and make sure that you're getting the most training for your buck. And that's what we do inside here at Endurance Nation. And what I'm finding is the more and more recommendations I make, the more and more it looks like I'm making your July look like December. And I'm using a lot of the protocols that we use in the winter to help time constrained athletes in the summer. So I'm going to go through what those changes are on a macro level, how they work, give you some specific swim, bike, run, how you can manage it, and then answer any questions you might have at the end on how to make this change and this setup work for you. So very quickly, for those who don't know, because this is a public webinar, Endurance Nation started in '07 after multiple years of one-on-one coaching. Coach Rich and myself stepped back and said, it is really not fun coaching a handful of people for lots and lots of money and doing ridiculous things for them, like telling them how to clip into their shoes and helping them pick out the color of their bike seat, and telling them where to put their foot when they're running. It was much more fun to work with a broader group of athletes on a different level, understanding that these athletes would be self-supported. We are now not the gurus in the room. We are rather the organizers. We bring the training plans together. We create the community. We support one another. And the net result is that we combined as a team are smarter, faster, stronger, quicker than any of us would have been on our own. It's made Endurance Nation a fantastic place to train, to race, even for me to work. It's a great place to just kind of cut your teeth and really get empowered. I think a lot of people, when they hire a triathlon coach, they have no idea what they're getting into. They don't even know what they're shopping for, but they're dialed in. They're paying for something. They don't even know what they need. And so inside Endurance Nation, we believe that making you as smart as possible in training and racing is the best path to your best triathlon self. And that's what we do. My background very quickly, not only do I wear ridiculously oversized trucker hats, I have done 22 Ironman races, personal best 927, winning my age group at Ironman Texas. I've been to Kona 7 times. I've had a very fortunate and outstanding run in the endurance sports space, which means I've made countless mistakes and errors, many of which I use to guide me as I lead you in not only webinars like this, but also online and training and so on. So everything you see here is predicated upon the fact that, hey, I'm an age grouper just like you guys. I got a life, I got stuff going on. I've got other constraints on my time in addition to this work. I've also, trying to train and do other stuff. And so even my own personal perspective is framed from how do I make the most out of my training time. Okay? I just want you guys to know that. So without further ado, let's dive in. I love pictures like this. I'm sure there's some sort of forum out there on the internet that has pictures of coworkers who've fallen asleep and not just planned pictures like this one. But I myself was there as well back in the day before Endurance Nation started. When I thought that volume was the answer, I was training. And I was training in the morning. In fact, I'd hired a professional athlete, very famous professional athlete, won Hawaii one time. Sat down and he was, I was on the phone and sat down and said, hey, all right, I really want to get to Hawaii. I want to be fast. What do I do? And so he told me, look, just tell me every single available hour you have to train. Like, tell me what's the most training you could do. And we'll go from there. So I sat down, I spent a couple hours and I looked at my week and I looked at commuting and everything and said, okay, here is all the time I could possibly train. I could train in the morning before work. I could train 30 minutes of swimming at lunch. I could ride my bike home from work. And that was like every day. And then I could, bike long on the weekends and run long on the weekends or run long at night or whatever. So I gave this schedule. I was probably training about 10 or 12 hours a week at the time, but I gave the schedule over and the schedule was about 22 hours, all like literally, okay, if Patrick stops eating, I can train. And if I stop sleeping, I can train. And if I don't, spend time with my wife, then I can train. So I did that and I sent it over to him and I said, all right, tell me what you think. And he looked at it and he just wrote back and said, great, do that for 10 weeks and then email me again and tell me how things are going. I nearly fell out of my chair because I was like, wait a minute. I train 12 hours a week, and now you're saying train 22 hours a week for 10 weeks, 2.5 months, and then come back and tell you how I'm doing. Well, that's, getting fitter, and that's using a really, really big stick. And the result was I looked a lot like this guy, although I didn't have the nice haircut. I was exhausted, fell asleep at the office all the time. Not only did my training performance suffer, but so too did my work performance. And it was something. I was young enough, I didn't really know any better. But looking back on it, really wish I had that time back, because I wasted a lot of it. Not only did my body suffer, but I suffered professionally, socially, all across the board. And so when you transition in season, we kind of go through that same process. Perhaps not as dramatic as my story, but every year we go from a period of time when we train and we're on fixed schedules because you don't have races and the weather's crappy, and we're dialed in, to a period of nice weather where all of a sudden it's so nice out you want to keep riding even though you don't necessarily have to. You want to spend more time outside. And we have this intersection of we want to do more, but we don't have enough time. It's a lot of training, almost too much training to absorb. Our work levels haven't changed, and things that are other commitments. And as a result, our total stress is high. Not only training stress is measured by the work that you're doing from a workout, but also just general life stress. You've got less time on the weekends, so there's friction with kids' sports or perhaps other commitments. You have time at work where you're trying to get out of the office. You can go work out because it's nice weather. So you're under the gun at work, and perhaps your coworkers are feeling some of that stress as well. There's a lot going on that can kind of sort of work against a positive, healthy you. We want to be very mindful of that. And the pain point is volume. If you want to be race specific, especially if you're doing a half or a full distance try, it just means doing more time. So we have to be very crafty about how we're going to use the concept of more to create the conditions of fitness and success for you down the road. So while your training shifts, life doesn't. It's not like life kicks in and says, we're gonna want less of your time, mom, because it's the summer and you want to train. Or work says, hey, we've got these big accounts, but I understand that you like to exercise more when the weather's nice. So I'll just give him to Johnson and he'll take care of it, and you just keep doing your thing, right? Like that. That doesn't happen. And poor Johnson, right? We don't want to crush them. So I want you to understand, at the end of the day, quality is still more important than just volume. Now, I mean, if you've got fitness, we always say do cool stuff. And if you wake up on Saturday and you've got your calendar is free, this weekend my Saturday is free. Both my girls are off at Girl Scout events. I am not allowed as a dad to the Girl Scout events. I've got a full day to myself. If I wanted to ride my bike 6 hours, I could. If I could find something cool to do, I would. That's fine. But you don't need to compromise other elements of your life for the sole pursuit of volume, because it's not the means to an end that you believe it to be. Or rather, I have taken that means, I have gotten to that end, and looking back, I realized that there were a million other things I could have done, but better use of my time. And that holds true for you as well. Okay? So there are some solutions, and we have them inside the team for how we manage volume. Some of them are basic. Some of them are just the way that we write our training plans. We keep our longest efforts, the bikes, to the weekends. So people will open our plans. They're very surprised to see that we only have one bike during the week, but two bikes on the weekends. Most triathlon training plans have two bikes during the week, Tuesday, Thursday, and one bike on the weekend, Saturday. And you get your long run on Sunday. Long bike, then long run, just like on race day. That's what people normally see, and people have for decades been changing their life schedule around to accommodate that. But really, honestly, in a long run, the longest you're going to run is maybe 2.5 hours, but the vast majority of the time it's going to be 90 minutes. That's a really poor use of Sunday workout time. And if it's a nice day and you don't have constraints and you can get outside, then you should go outside and do it. You should totally get out there and just have a blast. Ride. Do it. Make the most of the time. If you only got 90 minutes, I'd rather you squeeze that in and suffer on a Thursday morning. Because Thursday morning before work, you can't ride your bike 3 hours, but you could ride your bike 3 hours on a weekend. So managing that, we built in the plans from day one. That's all in there, okay? As I mentioned, the long run, we do that typically on your Thursday. And the longest run, single straight ahead run, is about 2 hours, unless you've got a race rehearsal run for an Ironman. And so as such, it generally fits your overall life schedule. Things are good. In fact, this year with 2016, we've added split long runs to the schedule, which means you've got 2 1-hour sessions at max, and those are much more digestible within the course of a day. But ultimately, whatever training protocol you're following, and this is what I do all day long in the micro thread, on the forum, the chat messages, everything with all of you on the team and people outside the team as well, is helping you create a schedule that works for you. I want you to understand, let's just step back. Let's go back long time. Your triathlon world needs to revolve around you. Okay? Now, I don't want you and your triathlon obsession to make everyone in your world revolve around you. That's not okay, right? But what I do want you to understand is this triathlon schedule has to work for you, just like that bike seat has to work for you, and those shoes have to fit your feet, and that wetsuit's got to fit your body. Okay, you've got to make that plan work for you, and you're the best person to do that. Simply picking up a plan and doing what someone else does doesn't work. That's like you're not going to play like Stephen Curry if you put his shoes on and just show up on the court. You're not going to do it. Of course, as consumers, we want to do that, but reality dictates otherwise. So remember, bottom line has to be sustainable for you. And the number one rule we have, this is one of Coach Rich's favorite sayings. He's got some great ones. This is one of mine as well. Don't follow your plan into a brick wall. If there's a problem, if you're experiencing friction, resistance, complaints, problems, whatever it may be, stop. Like that's what you pay us for. You pay us to fix things for you. You pay us to make sure that things are working well. That's what we do. So let us do that for you. Please get us involved and let us help change your plan to make sure that it's going to be sustainable for you across the long term. The longer you play the game, the better you get at the game. The more interruptions, problems, challenges you have with your training, the less likely you are to be successful down the road. And we're very mindful of that and cognizant of keeping you not only healthy, but happy as you're in your triathlon career. For me, and everyone sees results in year one. You're on a plan. A plan is helpful, then no plan, there's results. But the real metric of success for me is how are you doing in year three? Are you still in the game? Are you still competitive? Are you still seeing results? That's the arbiter for real success in our sport. And my job as a coach is to get you there. Whether or not you're aware of it at this point. Most of you aren't, right? But you can find that information in our members only area with a 3-year plan. You can find that in resources in the wiki area. So let's step back for a second and say, okay, well, what does it mean to keep the Pain Cave alive? The Pain Cave is a moniker for your indoor training area, usually where you keep your bicycle trainer. Some people have a treadmill or other areas. And that's where people generally in the wintertime will go and suffer, put the training time in. They don't go to a gym, they'll do it in their own pain cave, if you will. Mine's in a garage surrounded by equipment. Some people have beautiful rooms, whatever it is. Winter training is dominated by a couple key elements. Number one, there's a focus on quality. I want really good workouts because you're indoors. You can't be bored. They've got to be dialed in. Okay. There's at this time of year, volume is just not fun. Like these people are running in the snow, like that's cool, but it's not fun for a long period of time. You get cold, you get wet. The chances of you for getting sick, slipping, falling, all of that goes up. So the volume elements in the winter are not so much fun. Also, let's remember the volume is really not required. You know, if you're not doing a marathon, you don't need to run 18 miles in the winter. You just don't. You can run to be fit, but you don't have to run to be ready for a race. And most athletes get that. The problem that athletes have is when the race starts coming, they have this natural inclination to start adding more volume just because it's a marathon, so they've got to do more. More is not necessarily always better. Okay, so what happens in the winter is that your training is basically reduced to the smallest possible footprint. And what that means is that you said, hey, I need to make this training fit in my life. It's only, I can get this workout done in 45 minutes. So I get to sleep more. I get to do 45 minutes, etc. But when we get in season, people start saying, well, I really want to, ride my bike 3 hours this weekend. So I'm going to get up at 5, even though it's a Saturday and I'm going to be up late Friday night at this function, but I really want to get this ride in. So I'm going to do that. And all of a sudden you start compromising sleep. You're getting the time out on the bike, but it's not necessarily beneficial to you and so on. But in the winter, we don't have those constraints because we're not worried about those things. Okay. So how do we start bringing those elements into your triathlon season? Well, I like to think about it this way. In the wintertime, pool hours are a problem. It's cold, it's dark, it's just not fun. And when I tell people not to swim in the winter, most triathletes are like, hallelujah, thank you so much. There's a subset of people who really like swimming as a social activity, but for most parts, people are just like, oh God, I don't want to do it. It's done. Fine, please take it away, right? They're fine with it. In season, I want you to understand that the swim workouts should be really the first thing to go unless you had an experience when you're drowning or you've never swum before and you've got a lot of work to do. But for most of us, pool hours should be the first thing to go because honestly, they're your biggest enemy. Whoever decided to set lap sometimes for adults have chosen some really awful times for human beings in general. Who wants to swim at 5 a.m. or after 8 p.m. at night? It's just not great for your body. If you have flexibility in your schedule, you can do it at other times, but it's really hard. And on the weekends, when you do have time, all of a sudden there's swim lessons and birthday parties. Oh my God, right? And I spend the better part of my time swimming in pools with the water aerobics people. I splash them, they splash me back. I'm pretty fired up 65 plus year old men and women who love to get in splash fights with me. It's all good. But The net is it's really hard for you to swim. So um, I tell people this all the time, and I'm giving it to you guys now in this webinar. You can swim early, if you can get in the pool early if it's a master's session. Do that as long as you can handle it. So, for some people, there may be master's swim opportunities 3 days a week. But if getting up that early really hurts you, then only do it once a week. I don't want you to crush yourself to the tune of 3 times a week early in your year. Right now it's May. There's no point if your race is September, don't do that to yourself. Now do it once a week. You can make it through one day a week. Not you don't have to do all 3 days a week. And instead, do something smart like, hey, keep the muscle memory, the coordination, everything you need by using swim cords. We have those resources on the website to familiarize your muscles, because honestly, it's really just a couple of key muscles you're using to set up a proper swim stroke. A swim cord workout is not about aerobic sessions. It's about muscle specificity. And you can rehearse that and train that, and it will make your overall swimming better. There's still acclimatization. Good God, I can't say that with my braces on, to swimming in the water and even open water as well. But if you've got good muscle memory and good strength in those key swimming muscles, you'll be fine. So use swim cords to make up for the other times you can't get to the pool. Okay, and ultimately, if swimming is a friction point for you, then what we recommend doing, and this is what we do with our training plans by design, is stack more swimming closer to your race, because swimming is so skill oriented. Swimming more and swimming more closer to your race is more important than just swimming more across your year. Like, it looks good to say you did 100,000 yards this year. But if all of that was in January, February, and March, and you did very little swimming the rest of your year, and August was your race day, odds are your swim's not going to be that great. You got the time in, but it wasn't specific to your race. So we tend to weight to swim frequency and swim volume as your race gets more and gets closer to your schedule. So what we think about for you, and I encourage you to think the same way, is say, hey, if I'm more than 6 weeks out from my race, the swim is really not that important to me. I'll get it done. I'll get it in once in the morning, whatever I need to do, etc. But as I get within those last 6 weeks, I start dropping the shorter runs and I start doing more of the swim workouts I can. I want to ramp up my swim frequency and volume in the last couple of weeks. It compensates for the necessary drop with your taper on the bike and the run. It gives you more opportunity to work on your skills and will lead to a better swim performance at reduced cost to your life. So what about the bike? Well, the Pain Cave typically has a bicycle trainer in it. We recommend using a fluid trainer. Cyclops is a brand that I've used for years. They have a money-back guarantee on their stuff. In fact, I think I've only bought one of them, and I bought it in like 2004. And since then, I've replaced it twice. I just tell them it broke. I mail it in. They mail me a new one. I'm done. Best guarantee ever. So they really have my support as a customer, which I'm telling you about them now. But there are plenty of other trainers out there. We generally recommend fluid trainers. They're low cost. They're pretty quiet. They're very easy to set up. There's just a wheel you're tightening down. That's it. Done. Go. Right. The reason why we like trainers is that they're not only safe. Right. You're not on the open road. You're not dealing with traffic and potholes and changing light conditions. They're also time efficient. And by time efficient, I mean you can leave your bike on the trainer. I leave my shoes in the pedals. My computer is on top of the bike. All I need to do is get up in the morning and put on my bicycle shorts, walk downstairs, have a cup of coffee. I eat a Nature's Valley granola bar. I get the nutrition bottle that I made the night before, and I go ahead and just sit downstairs, swing my leg over the bike, put my feet in the shoes, and go. I'm done. Whereas if I'm riding outside, it's checking the bike, prepping the bike, pumping the tires, doing all this stuff because I got to in and out. It was outside last time. Maybe I got something, I got a flat tire. I got to get dressed. What's the weather going to be like? Where am I going? What time of day is it? Is it going to be traffic, buses, whatever I've got? All the stuff that I deal with, it's really challenging. On the trainer, I have none of that friction. All I got to do is make sure that I got the right movie to show up on the TV, so I'm happy when I'm going in there. Okay? So, ideally what I tell people is, have your road bike on the indoor trainer if you have a road bike and a tri bike. Keep the road bike there so it's just locked in. It's easy. It's loaded. Tri bike versus road bike, it's minimal for the time you're doing. It's more about just keeping things simple. When you're riding indoors, it's generally your main set. We write the main set out for you on Endurance Station, so you have your MS, your main set, and then any remaining time you have can be in zone 3. This is also known as always be pushing time inside Endurance Station. But basically, what it means is just get the quality stuff done. Any bonus time you have, we ride just hard enough to see fitness gains without so hard that we have reduced complications down the line from fatigue or muscle soreness. And that ultimately lets you take a 90-minute workout and condense it into an hour. It's not just beneficial because you never stop pedaling on a trainer, but you can do more work in a fixed period of time. You recover faster. It's just better work for you. Okay. And by taking control of your time, you're mastering your time. You can shorten the workouts. You're back in charge, but also you're not beholden to the weather. You're not beholden to the time of day. You can ride that trainer everywhere. We've got some athletes on the team um, who live in China. Air quality is very poor. Just all trainer all the time, and it's very effective. I think in this picture that maybe Andy Potts. It's hard to tell from this far away, but when you look at Andy Potts, he's a big CompuTrainer user, and that guy trains indoors all the time. Okay, and so it's a very effective tool, and so it's certainly worthwhile considering and keeping that going even in season. So inside Endurance Nation, the way that we'd recommend you use the trainer is to do your Wednesday interval ride, your FTP ride. Do that on the trainer. That's done. If Saturday needs to also be done in the trainer, you can do it where you do your intervals inside. So I've done this in the past when I needed to be done earlier with a longer ride. I had a 4-hour ride on the schedule, but I had to be off the bike by 10. I start and ride from like 6 to 8 indoors, get my intervals done, etc., in the dark and be fine, and then meet my friends at 8 and do the second half of my ride outside. It involves some changing of clothes, but allows me to get both in my ride in. I get some time outside. The quality's been done. It's a good compromise. Even when the weather goes south, I can do that as well. Okay. If you have to do ABP ride as well, that Sunday ride, you can do that inside too. That's fine. Generally, I'll mix up the ABP stuff with some gear shifting. So I'll do maybe some harder, lower cadence intervals. Not that I'm jamming on the pedals harder. I just feel more resistance. Sometimes I even stand up as well. I just challenge myself by doing some different stuff there as well. So there's different ways to kind of work that in. And there's other programs out there now. Back in the day, there was nothing. Now you've got Trainer Road, which is one of the tools that we use inside the team for our workouts. And you'll find Endurance Nation's winter and midweek rides for all of our training plans, like the Wednesday interval rides. In Trainer Road, there's an Endurance Nation group there. Zwift is a newer tool. It's kind of a group ride phenomenon that people enjoy doing, virtual training through your computer. And there's also Erg Video, which is compatible with the CompuTrainer set of trainers. The technology is changing so rapidly that you can easily ride indoors with others, and still get a great workout and never leave the place, right? And a lot of the stuff works with your existing computers and so on, which is great. So it's very easy to do, very easy to be effective and dialed in your training, and I strongly encourage you to consider it. So how about the treadmill? Okay, well, first of all, the most important thing about running on a treadmill is that your jog bra has to match the color of your sneakers. I'm kidding, but I just noticed that. Look at that. And you need to understand that the running on a treadmill does not replace real running. That there's some compromises when the road is moving and you're on it versus you moving yourself on a road. Get that? Right? In a treadmill, that road is moving and you're on top of it, but when you're running outside, you're moving yourself on a road. So there's just fundamentally a strength differential. It gets you fit, but it doesn't have you strong fitness. And for most treadmill runners or people who run on a treadmill, especially in the winter, you'll notice that when you hit the hills outside, the weather turns, you get outside, you're trying to run up some hills and you can't go anywhere, but other people are running by you. You seem to be doing the same thing, you just don't seem to be going anywhere. And that's just because you haven't been doing a lot of glute work, the traditional push-off extension work that we'd be doing if you were running outside, which is fine. It comes around quickly, but just so you know, it's not a straight-up 100% replacement. Using the treadmill is great for bricks, especially for people like the guy we saw on the slide before. You got that treadmill right next to your bike, just swing your leg off, put it right on the treadmill, boom, get the workout done, and you're done. It's great. Short, sweet, and done. Treadmills are also a great place to do incline runs. People always ask, like, what's the right percent hill? It's hard to guess, what the grade of a specific hill is. But you can use a treadmill incrementally to go 3%, 4%, 5%, and every week you can change the time at percent grade you are. Maybe you're running 2-minute hill inclines at an easy pace, and you're doing it 3% next week. You can do the last 30 seconds at 4%, and then a week after that you can do the last minute at 4%, and so on. You continually use the dials to move stuff up and down and just kind of get you stronger and better in a very safe, controlled way. If you are going to run on the treadmill extensively, then take care of your flexibility. Like treadmills can, like I mentioned with a shorter stride, it can stress your hamstrings a little bit more, maybe reduce the strength in your glute. You still want to warm up. It's easy to swing your leg over your bike and just go, but you should never do that running. We want you to warm up. You can do brisk walking to a slow jog to getting into it, but still we want to warm up. And ultimately, don't punish yourself with paces. And I say that because people will say, oh, zone 4 says I should be running at 7-minute miles. They just get on the treadmill and just beep, 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 beep. 7-minute miles, 1% or 2% incline, which is kind of a standard, and they'll go out and they start crushing it. And your body needs to warm up; it needs to adapt. And ultimately, 7-minute miles on a treadmill feels very different than 7-minute miles outside. And so, giving yourself some flexibility to get there, and I'm okay with your fitness improving across that ride or getting better across that ride versus putting yourself in a box and trying to see everything get dialed in right out of the gate. That's just not worth it to me. It's a great opportunity for you to get injured, so you want to be mindful of that. So, in terms of using your treadmill for your workouts, generally for your uh, Tuesday interval runs, which is what happens in season, those are great, as well as any brick runs that you do the rest of the day. If possible, I recommend you get outside for that long run on those Thursdays. You get that done, and you kind of log that in. So, worst case scenario, it's all your runs indoors, but the long runs outside, and kind of modify according to that. All right. There are some pros and cons, and I have to be honest about them as we're handling it. On the pro side, you get time back on your side. You can ignore time of day, etc. Super duper safe. You're not worried about cars, traffic, weather, all those things that kind of come in and sort of take up your mental energy and take away your focus on the workout. All that's gone. And ultimately, it's easier to measure. Like, the resistance, the temperature, you know how hard you're going. All that's very easy to measure and replicate and improve. Whereas outside, you may ride faster one day than another, but because the first day there was a tailwind for most of your ride, and today is a headwind, or maybe there was some traffic and so on. There's lots of other factors kind of come in to impact your ability outside. Okay, and so inside keeps it very easy to measure. Sorry, on the negative side, it's not real world specific. And for example, with the bike, a lot of people who ride the trainer tend to go outside and they become mashers. Like, they're not good at handling their bike because their bike's just been locked in place and they just bang on the pedals. And so it can compromise your ability to improve from a skill focus unless you're intentional. It can compromise your ability to kind of improve in sort of how you handle those workouts, how you handle the bike, and so on. There's different nutritional demands inside. Like, you're much more thirsty, you're going through a lot more fluid than you are outside. And a huge part about race specific training is just getting that nutrition and practicing it. So the trainer is actually a great place to train for hotter races. If you're doing Texas or Kona, for example, those are two hot races we know about. St. Croix is a hot one, Cozumel's a hot one. The trainer becomes a great tool for simulating what you're going to experience on race day from a temperature, humidity, hydration perspective. But for other people in other races, or for people who don't pay that much attention, you'll quickly find yourself out of water on the trainer because of how much you sweat. You got to be very careful about that. And the burnout potential is super high. And I can't talk about indoor training without talking about burnout. It's so easy to kind of get overwhelmed and bored, almost unchallenged by things if they're always the same. So we definitely make the workouts dynamic, and you can obviously make challenges in there and connect with the team and ask your input. But in general, training is hard because of the length of time required and the frequency with which you do those long workouts. And so having that locked into your indoor space only increases the mental cost of those workouts. You want to be very, very mindful of that. Okay. So that is the end of my presentation here about making your in-season workouts more winter-like, taking advantage of the pain cave, moving indoors. For those of you not on the team, I definitely encourage you to head over to endurancenation.us/join. Create a free trial, check us out, and hopefully you'll get dialed in with everything you need to be ready and make the most of your training time. That said, I'm going to head over to the questions area. For people who do have questions, please feel free to go ahead and post them in there. I'm happy to answer them as I see them come up. In general, as I think about your indoor training, I think it's important, and this is always, keep in mind it's a retrospective, but looking back on my training and the time I spent training, I think you can always find ways to make it better. So it's kind of like, doing anything like tying your shoes. You write out all the steps for tying your shoes. There's going to be a couple steps in there you can improve. And I think our training is the same way. Do I really need to ride 5 hours on Saturday and 4 hours on Sunday? Is there a way I can ride just 4 hours on Saturday and 2 hours on Sunday? And if I do that, how am I going to change the intensity? How am I going to change my focus? All that sort of comes into play. And I think having that external objective view of your year will not only make you a better athlete in terms of quality workouts, it'll also make you better from a rest perspective. And that's just as important for us as we think about what it means to be successful. The longer you can continue to work out and be healthy and be fit, the better off your overall results will be. Okay. All right, folks, I want to thank you for tuning in to this week's special coach webinar, as I talked about, bringing the pain cave into the season. If you have other advice or thoughts for us, please don't hesitate to let us know on our Facebook page, facebook.com/endurancenation, or you can find us online on Twitter at twitter.com/team Team EN, that is. I really appreciate you guys tuning in. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and your week. We'll be back with more coach-specific content down the road. But until then, have fun out there or in there. Be safe, be good, stay hydrated, and I'll see you guys online or at the races.